Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're diving into an important and often misunderstood topic. Why did mental health homes close? If you've ever wondered what led to the closure of large psychiatric institutions and how it impacted mental health care, stick around. For much of the 19th and early 20th centuries, people with severe mental illnesses were often cared for in large state-run psychiatric hospitals or asylums. While these institutions were meant to provide care, they became controversial due to overcrowding, poor conditions, and reports of abuse. By the late 20th century, most of these facilities had closed. So, what happened? The closure of mental health homes was largely driven by a movement called deinstitutionalization. Starting in the 1950s and 1960s, there was a growing belief that people with mental illnesses could live fuller, healthier lives in their communities rather than being confined in institutions. This shift was fueled by several key factors. One major factor was the development of antipsychotic medications, like Thorazine, in the 1950s. These drugs made it possible to manage symptoms of mental illness outside of hospital settings. Suddenly, long-term institutionalization wasn't the only option. At the same time, investigative reports and exposés revealed the often horrific conditions in many psychiatric institutions. Overcrowding, neglect, and even abuse were common. For example, the infamous Willowbrook State School in New York, which housed individuals with developmental disabilities, became a national scandal when journalist Geraldo Rivera exposed its inhumane conditions in 1972. This was just one of many institutions that highlighted the need for reform. Legal and civil rights changes also played a big role. Landmark cases like O'Connor versus Donaldson in 1975 established that individuals could not be confined in mental institutions against their will unless they were a danger to themselves or others. This shift in legal precedent emphasized patient autonomy and drastically reduced the number of people who could be involuntarily institutionalized. In 1963, President John F. Kennedy signed the Community Mental Health Act. This law aimed to replace large institutions with community-based care centers. The idea was to provide outpatient services, therapy, and support in local communities. It was a revolutionary concept, but there was one major problem: funding. For instance, California's Napa State Hospital, which once housed thousands of patients, saw its population decline dramatically as deinstitutionalization took hold. While deinstitutionalization was well-intentioned, it was never fully funded. Many community mental health centers were promised but never built. At the same time, state governments began cutting budgets for psychiatric hospitals, leading to closures without adequate alternatives in place. A notable example is the closure of the Danvers State Hospital in Massachusetts, which was once a prominent psychiatric facility. By the 1990s, it was abandoned, symbolizing the decline of institutional care. Another surprising influence on the closure of mental health homes came from pop culture, specifically the 1975 film One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The movie, based on Ken Kesey's novel, portrayed life inside a psychiatric institution as dehumanizing and oppressive. It struck a chord with audiences and amplified public awareness of the potential for abuse in these facilities. The film's depiction of overbearing staff, power struggles, and the loss of autonomy for patients contributed to a growing mistrust of institutional care. While it was a fictional story, it reflected real concerns about the mental health system at the time, reinforcing the push for reform and community-based alternatives. The rapid closure of mental health homes left a vacuum in care. Many individuals with severe mental illnesses ended up homeless or incarcerated. For example, the closure of the Detroit Psychiatric Institute contributed to a rise in homelessness in the city. Jails and prisons became the new asylums, but they were ill-equipped to provide proper mental health care. This remains a major issue today. So, what can we learn from this history? Deinstitutionalization highlighted the importance of treating people with dignity and integrating them into their communities, but it also showed us the dangers of underfunding mental health care. Today, there's a growing push to rebuild mental health infrastructure, with a focus on housing, community-based services, and crisis intervention programs. The story of mental health homes is a powerful reminder of the balance we need between compassion and practicality. While institutions had serious flaws, their closures left many without the care they needed. It's up to us to ensure that history doesn't repeat itself. What do you think about the closure of mental health homes? Do you believe community care is the right approach, or do we need a mix of solutions? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who cares about mental health.